Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Abel. The reason why I'm doing this video is actually to spread awareness of what's happening with the Uber and Lyft situation. As we all know right now at this moment, it's been a lot more difficult to find rides. I actually used to work for Uber. I still do, however, I switched over to the Uber Eats section and I'm doing DoorDash now. Let me tell you about my experience. I started about maybe 6 months ago. It was honestly the best job to work at. I was able to set my own rates. I was able to, work the hours that I wanted. I got upfront information telling me where to pick up the customer, where I was going to drop them off. And, basically based on that, since I was able to charge, a lot of these issues that started stemming up with these new changes that I'm about to talk about have been, making life harder for the regular everyday Uber driver. Let me tell you, so, before, let's start with Prop 22. During that time, Uber wanted to influence the public and let them know, hey, our drivers are independent contractors. Um, you know, because of that, we're gonna give them the multiplier. So as Uber drivers, we were able to adjust our rates and charge what we felt was reasonable. Um, and the issue started stemming out, maybe about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. Uber, I guess, piloted the program, and a lot of people were charging a little bit more for the to drive around customers because of the inherent risk that we were driving during the pandemic. People, you didn't know who was sick, who was healthy, and people did die, and people obviously adjusted to the market. I'm taking more risks, I feel I should be able to charge more. And the customer is able to accept or decline. Now, during this pandemic, keep in mind, not a lot of people were working. So what ended up happening, they stated that, a lot of people, a lot of our customers have been declining rides. I think it was like 100 and something% from the memo that they sent out. Um, and because of that test program, keep in mind, 100% might sound like a lot, and probably in business terms it is a lot. But when you think about it, if you have maybe 20 declines for every 100 or for every 1,000, and then you get, an extra 20 more, because it's 100%, you're doubling it essentially. you know 40 out of 1,000, that might not be a lot. Now, I don't know too much about the technical numbers that Uber pulled out, but because of that, they took away the ability for drivers to set their own rates. Now, when Uber first started, I think they were paying drivers about $4 a mile, $2 or something, I've heard. When I started working for Uber, it was at 80 cents a mile. That was the base rate. I think time wise, it was about 30 cents a mile. Um, then what Uber decided to do, they put all drivers, and this was like a month and a half ago. So we're at the end of May 27th, 2021. So keep in mind, about a month and a half ago, what Uber decided to do is they switched all drivers from 80 cents a mile to 60 cents. So we lost our ability to set our own rates. That was a huge hit in our earnings. And keep in mind, we have to maintain gas. Gas has gone up. It didn't go up by a couple cents or anything like that. I've seen some places it's like 4.50, $5 a gallon out in LA. If you're out doing Uber, you need to factor in the cost of these vehicle maintenances and vehicle requirements. So it's 80 cents a mile. Then what ended up happening, since we had upfront information, we took a serious hit in our paychecks. We were able to see upfront information. So we were able to see, you're picking up this customer, you're going to drop them off over here. And the issue with that stems, on the longer rides, we can factor in gas expense and stuff like that and make, financial educated decisions. However, once, they lowered the base rate, some of these customers, they literally need like a ride maybe about a mile away and stuff like that. And I'm not against that. There's a right price for everything. However, sometimes the offers from Uber is like, hey, go pick up this customer. It's 15, 20. I've had offers where it's 25 minutes away for a $2 ride. I think Uber pays a little bit less than Lyft. So I think they offer you between $2 to $3 for that ride, because they don't factor in the cost it takes you to go pick up the customer. They charge you from the moment you pick up the customer to drop them off. And that becomes a serious issue because, if I have to drive 15, 20 miles, that's already a gallon of gas in some situations. I personally have an Acura TSX, the 2008, and I get about 20 something miles to the gallon. I didn't plan on doing Uber. However, I tried out Uber. I was working at a factory job, and I was miserable there. And once I started working for Uber, I thought it was the greatest experience. I tap danced to work. It was the best thing. I felt empowered. I worked the days that I wanted, and then I wouldn't work certain days, depending on how I was feeling. So with that being said, um, we a lot of the drivers, what ended up happening was we started declining rides, because how am I going to drive 15, 20 minutes away to drop off a customer for only $2, $3? I'm spending almost, give or take, let's say the customer is 20, 25 minutes. Once you arrive there, most of the time, customers aren't ready. So now you have to wait for the customer. And, with the right price, everything goes. I don't mind as long as I'm being compensated properly. I don't mind. You want me to wait 5, 10, 15, 20? Oh, shoot. I'll even wait for you up to like an hour. If the money's good, if the money's there, I'll wait for you. I'm there to serve. I'm there to drive to point A to point B, you know? So, but, there's a wait time. So, obviously, you have to factor that in, give or take maybe 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the customer and things like that. So, you've already wasted 20, 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how long the trip it was to get to that location. You go and drop them off for $2, $3, doesn't make any business sense. So a lot of these drivers that are currently driving, because many of them are scared because of the pandemic, they decline these rides, and it makes business sense. So what Uber started doing literally about a week later, because they sent out an email saying, because about 60%, 67% increase in decline rates, we're now taking the ability of you guys seeing upfront information. Now, when the whole Prop 22 happened, it was supposed to be for the benefit of drivers to be independent contractors. But I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like the only reason this happened was because it shifted the liability from Uber to the independent contractor. Now, Uber does provide some insurance. I'm not going to say it's the best. They have a really high deductible. And if you get into a car accident, you'll use Uber's insurance. However, if the damage or bodily injuries exceed that insurance coverage, then the liability shifts into the driver, because I'm an independent contractor. So the lawsuit or whatever happens to the customer goes towards the driver. So a lot of people don't know this, and as a business owner, you need to be aware of these things, because accidents do happen. Sometimes it's not even your fault, but because you're driving and the customer got injured and you're doing a job, that lawsuit, if they file towards you, can go against you. Now, I've had some personal issues where it comes with insurance, and it's not necessarily the best. I used to work for Lyft, and one of the issues that I found out, I had these customers, I believe they were on drugs. I did not have the ability to pull over safely to drop them off, and the customer just wildly, without even looking outside of her surroundings, just opened the door and exited the vehicle. Now, there was a car, this was at like a Target parking lot, and a car was passing by and it clipped my door. And, Lyft at the time made it seem, hey, we got you under control, we're going to help you out, blah, blah, blah. But once the damage happened, they said, you know what? You have liability insurance and you caused the accident, and unfortunately, we're not going to cover your damage, you know? But when I signed up for Lyft, they made it seem like I was fully covered. They take you through those steps and everything. They tell you, you're going to be covered. And they reassured me. It made me feel like, wow, this company is, protecting me. I don't expect much, but for things like that, I would assume that they would at least provide full coverage. But being I understand they're a corporation, and I shouldn't have thought that way, because every corporation is going to trim fat and they're going to not pay for your best interest. But I think it would honestly be a basic requirement. However, I understand that they're just trying to save money. So, because I didn't have full coverage insurance, they decided that they weren't going to fix my car. Now, I was lucky. It wasn't extensive damage, and I was actually able to fix it myself. But many people would have been financially hurt by that. It clipped my door, and, what's the cost of a door? What's the cost of a mechanic to do all these things? You know? So, going back to the subject with Uber or Lyft, there was a lot of decline rates, and, you know, basically Uber took the ability to see upfront information. And I kid you not, it's been one of the worst experiences ever. I drove one night because I wasn't able to see upfront information, and I only made $70. You know, I think I broke even that night because it takes $60 to fill up my gas tank. How am I supposed to make a living? And for all the people that, talk about, oh, you're an independent contractor, Prop 22, there's a lot of issues with this whole Prop 22 masquerade. And I'm gonna talk about my concerns right now. So with the whole Prop 22, you make about 1.2 of whatever city you're working in. Most wages, depending in California, somewhere between, I think last time I checked, it was between 13 and 15 an hour. 13 to 15 an hour, 1.2, that's about maybe, I don't know, 16, 18 an hour, something like that. I don't know if you guys have seen, gas prices is around like $4 or $5 a gallon. And Uber and Lyft doesn't cover that, you know? So you got to factor that in, you know? So from those, I've driven, and we put a lot of miles in our car. I kid you not. I bought this car with, I think, 130,000 miles. It was 114, but once I started doing Uber and Lyft, it was about 130,000 miles. My car has about 155 at this moment, almost 156. So almost like 30,000 miles in less than a year, you know? So we put a shit ton of miles into our car, and with Prop 22, you also, since you're an independent contractor, you have to pay for the full price of the taxes, your earned income, and depending on your tax bracket and how much you earned after your expenses and stuff like that, you could probably be looking between like 15-20%, that you have to set aside because you're obviously going to have to pay. There are tax deductions and stuff like that, and every person can vary. I'm not going to get into that. However, you need to set aside money because you're obviously going to have to, pay taxes. That's for sure. Now, the whole 1.2, let's say you save 15-20% of your taxes to pay for income tax, you know, 15-20%, there goes your 1.2. So now you're really making about 15 an hour, and then you got to drive and pay out of pocket. I put wheels or tires into this vehicle at Costco, and it costed me almost $1,000. You know, granted, there's specials and you know, but it was still $1,000. And the wear and tear, since you're putting so many miles, I just said you drive about 20-30,000 miles. um who's paying for the brakes? Who's paying for the rotors? I have to do oil changes on my car about every 2 weeks because I put about 3,000 miles at the time when I was doing Uber for driving customers around. So every 2 weeks, you know, you could do it yourself and save you money, but a lot of people don't have that luxury. Like me, for example, I live in a park, and unfortunately, that park doesn't allow people to do oil changes there. So you have to take it to a store, or so all of those things, the cost adds up. I think an oil change for full synthetic, I think the cheapest place is Walmart. You're probably looking at like almost $50, 50, 55 after taxes and stuff like that. So you factor in all these expenses, and now Uber's doing these things. And the issue with that is there's a lot. Uber isn't stupid. They hire bright and talented people to make them profitable, and I completely understand that. I'm not gonna bash them, but when you take the ability for a driver with their earnings, you know a lot of issues come out. The risk shifted more towards the driver, and Uber started pocketing the money. And Uber will say that there are surge spots and surge zones. But it's very interesting because when I drive around, and this isn't only my experience, there's many drivers that have been out there, experiencing the same situation. It seems like every time we drop off a customer, we check our map to see where the surge zones are at. There's like this, I would like to kind of compare it to how, like Moses from the Bible, where they kind of like, he was able to like split the water, and there's like a little tunnel, because it seems like every time you drop off a customer, you check out the surge spot, it's just white. There's no surges happening in that area. And I guess what Uber's trying to do is they're trying to manipulate and make drivers go to the surge zones, obviously where there's demand, but it makes sense in the sense, and I don't know how their algorithms work, but why are they going to pay a customer, or why are they going to pay a driver more money when the driver's already at that location? It makes no sense. It's similar to how the business tactics, how cell phone providers try to do. They will never offer what is it, the customer